Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. I first want to qualify this by saying I am not a professional speaker. I'm only an amateur, but I did take speech class in high school, and my professor told one thing: establish your credibility. So what do I know about team building and leadership? Well, besides lots of letters, which doesn't make me smart, just means I'm a glutton for punishment. I've been in healthcare for 35 plus years. I use the plus now because I stopped counting. So it's always going to be plus forever. And I've led teams of various sizes. Right now, I lead a team of about 200 at Children's Hospital Los Angeles as the executive director of imaging and imaging research. I've also, the hardest teams I've led, I was a football coach for over 15 years. So if you want a lesson in leading teams, try leading 56-year-olds to run a play. Or harder yet, 50 high schoolers was much more difficult. So I've had a lot of experience leading teams. One of my doctoral degrees was in business administration. In my dissertation, I spent 2 years studying team dynamics, group dynamics, especially in hospital settings and leadership settings. So I want to talk today about how you can glow as a leader and be a glower, not a shower. And it doesn't say shower. After it went out, I was like, I wonder how many people read shower and were wondering, God, what is this about? So conflicts of interest disclosures. I also am the past president of HRA. I'm not here on their behalf, nor on Children's Hospital Los Angeles behalf. These are my own views. I did use AI to make images because I'm terrible at that, but content is all original content unless otherwise noted. I do reference a lot of books that are ones I find valuable I want to pass on to you, but those will be clearly noted. And I have no monetary interest in this presentation or the content. This is my just personal belief that true leadership isn't about being the star, it's about lighting the stage so others can shine. I made up an acronym because we don't have enough acronyms in our life, so I made up one more. I call GLOW. Stands for giving resources, letting go, opening opportunities, and watching them win. And we're going to talk about all of these today. I hope that it sparks some curiosity in at least one of you, hopefully all of you, then there's going to be a lot of practical tools on how you can glow as a leader, how you can use these concepts in your everyday life and grow the performance of your team. So let's start with G, giving resources. This is about empowering others, and it begins with giving them what they truly need. These could be tangible things. These could be tools and equipment. These could be financial resources for projects or training. These could be workspace improvements. I don't know about you guys, but I'm constantly hunting for chairs. Every time I turn around, people are like, I need another chair, I need another chair. I have no idea where they go. And I totally get it that we're budget constrained. I totally get it that they're like, this MRI sucks, it's 20 years old, we need a new one. I can't just get them a new one tomorrow. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that are under your control, the small things that prevent them from doing their best work, anything that you can do to provide them tangible resources. It could be things like knowledge and learning, things like training, access to training programs, courses, seminars like this, access to experts, opportunities to learn from experienced professionals. I do this one a lot because I happen to, through HRA, I've gotten the blessing to know a lot of people. And so I often just connect them together to be like, you know, you should really talk to my MRI lead or my nuke med or whatever. So giving them access to those resources. This one is free, clear communication of goals, strategies, and expectations. It could also be giving them support and empowerment, giving them time to learn, recover, giving them some autonomy. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about this, and giving them some encouragement. Most of the talk is going to be spent on these concepts because these are free. These are things you can do without permission. These are things you don't need the C-suite for. Okay, that's supposed to be a video. Oh, it looks like it might be the next one. So how do you know what they need? Here's a little video that'll explain how to figure that out. But it won't play. Yeah, if you could, then I can just go back to it. So we'll go back to it if we can get the video to play. But essentially, you have to listen. You have to ask them in order to figure out what they need. So as a leader, you should listen to learn, to interpret, to support, to tune in, to empathize, and nurture. If you notice, the one thing that's not on there is solve. Listening to solve is probably a bad idea. Something I do a lot, and I think a lot of us do, because that's just our nature, is to be problem solvers. And most of us got into this business to be helpers. So we immediately go to solution mode. There's a famous model for listening called the Hurrier model. Hearing, paying full attention, understanding, remembering the main points, interpreting, adding context, evaluating, which is analyzing the information without bias, and responding, show you listen through thoughtful feedback. The way I respond is I check in. What I typically do is I'll say, after the person's done, I'll say, can I repeat what I thought I heard? And then once I repeat that, I check in the second time, say, did I get that mostly right, what I repeated? That oftentimes will spark further conversation of, no, that's not really what I meant, but that's maybe what I heard. A few tips to improve listening that I have found valuable in my life: being present, clearing your mind. A lot of times you'll have those crucial conversations or difficult conversations. You have 50 other things on your plate that's running through your brain. Try and take a breath and shed those for a little bit and be like, I gotta be present now for this. Withhold judgment. So listen to understand, not to respond immediately. Ask openly. We'll talk more about this in a little bit also. One that I like to do is take notes, and I'll warn the person. I'm going to take some notes just because I don't have the greatest memory, and this is important to me, so I want to remember it. And then pause before you reply. I'm terrible at this one because my mouth just goes before my brain engages, but being intentional to take a pause, process a little bit before you reply. And if all else fails, author Parker Palmer says, turn to wonder. Turn off your assumptions, turn on your curiosity. An awesome book that explains more about this topic is called The Courage Way. I recommend that to everybody. One of the best questions to me that I like is, I wonder if there's a better way. Like, I love your idea. I wonder if there's a different way, better way. I wonder how we can add to your idea. Another one is to set the problem aside for a moment. So if you're dealing with a particular sticky problem, just set that specific thing aside. So let's spend some time talking about what's really going on for you. Yeah. It was embedded. So that showed up, but they have another one too coming up in a few slides.
Yeah, it's not embedded anymore. So there's another one too.
Yeah.
One of them.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks. Yeah. I was an amateur. That one there. Sorry, I'm really stuck on this one because I thought it was really good. So I'm like, I don't want to miss this one.
Do you know the name of the video?
No, that was in there.
see it because it just says the prototype.
So in the other slide, there was the code.
Oh,
was
you've
in.
done that before.
Yeah. When I flipped to it, I thought I saw the code. Oh,
You might have to go.
that's okay. In the interest of time.
All right. It pops up, but it won't. It is.
Okay, it's fine.
Sorry about that.
Well, you missed out. It's a really funny video. Guys go into the coffee shop, what don't you want? And they look at her. And we only serve T-bone steak and baked upper one time. Some jerk came in and ordered fish. We don't serve no fish. So what don't you want? T-bone steak or baked potato? And they said, well, corn on the cob or green beans. Which one don't you want? So they both said green beans. And then she says, okay, 2 T-bones, medium. And the guy says, actually, she said, that wasn't no question. So the point was, you really have to ask and listen and not assume. So if you can find that video, I recommend it. So curiosity. Some other useful questions to build relationships. I recommend, this is top on my bookshelf as well, the coaching habit. It's chock full of good, valuable questions you can ask your team. One of the ones that I like and use a lot is, instead of asking, why can't you do X? What would it take to do X? What are the barriers that are preventing you from doing X? Let's talk about those. Another one that's really valuable is bringing up the subject of, why didn't you just tell me? Have you guys ever instituted something and thought that it was happening? Then you go back like a month later and it's like, oh no, we don't do that anymore. And you didn't even know it stopped. So that's my opportunity to say, why didn't you tell me you were facing challenges? Like, why didn't you tell me before you stopped it? And what is it that I'm doing that contributes to you not speaking up? There's some myths about listening, in my opinion. Some people think listening is passive, you just sit there. But for me, it takes effort and intention to listen. I need to speak to connect. Often being quiet diminishes them. Multitasking works. If you're in that boring Teams meeting that you don't need to talk, I know we all multitask and are sitting doing emails at the same time. But if you're with your teammates trying to lead, divided attention means missing key details. Listeners are born, not made. I think that's maybe partially true. Some people naturally are really good listeners. Some people like me have to work really hard at it. But I do think effective listening is a learned skill that you can get better at over time. Listening means agreeing. You can understand without having to agree. I wish the world was more like that, but we won't talk politics. But just understanding and having dialogue, you don't have to agree. And this is where AI, Carmen, you were talking about AI. I could not get AI to make the neck like shorter. You think that would be an easy command, make neck shorter, but no, I couldn't figure that out. But none of what I'm talking about can happen without psychological safety. One of the key books around psychological safety, if you want to learn more about it, is The Fearless Organization. I highly recommend that one. We're going to talk a little bit about the main concepts in that book. Psychological safety is the foundation of high-performing teams. It means people feel safe to speak up, share ideas, ask questions, and admit mistakes without fear of embarrassment or punishment. That's what psychological safety means. When teams know that their input is valued, they contribute more openly and collaborate more effectively. This is not about being nice. It's about being clear, candid, and respectful, so learning can happen. Learning and growth, there's some learning behaviors. I'm trying to find the cursor here. They're really making this difficult for me. Oh, there we go, thank you. So learning and growth, like experimenting, giving feedback, surfacing problems can only happen when psychological safety exists. Teams need an environment where failure is treated as data. not as personal shortcomings. So I want to repeat that one. Failure is a data point, not a personal shortcoming. Highlight that continuous learning drives innovation, adaptability, and long-term success. And model curiosity, as we talked about, and normalize iterative improvement, meaning normalize the concept that we're going to fail, we're going to get better. We're going to fail, we're going to get better. It's an iterative process. It's all part of the game. As a leader, you play a central role in creating this psychological safety. Your reaction to questions, ideas, and mistakes signal to your team whether transparency is welcomed or discouraged. You should demonstrate humility, ask genuine questions, invite diverse viewpoints, and we talked about active listening. Reinforce that psychological safety it's not a soft skill. Reinforce with your team. It's a leadership competency. Avoiding a culture of fear. Fear really silences people. It hides risks and leads to a lot of preventable failures. How many times have you heard your team say, I was afraid to tell the doctor, I was afraid to speak up? Fear really can be a really patient safety risk. In fear-based environments, individualize, prioritize self-protection over collaboration and innovation. Address that organizations must replace blame with learning, even in high-stakes industries like healthcare. Cultures free of fear allow teams to acknowledge problems early, make better decisions, and protect organizational health. So you really are killing me here. Yeah. Okay, and then I have to figure out, oh, the cursor stayed. So what are key behaviors to model this? Foster openness, encourage participation, show humility yourself, and respond productively. So let's move on to the L in GLOW, letting go. In my mind, I think of it like the bicycle seat analogy, which is I made up, and I'm not equating your managers or leaders with children. The concept's about the seat, but when you're trying to teach a kid how to ride a bike, like you're right there with your hand on the seat the entire time as they're riding. And then as they get a bit more wobbly, you'll take it off for a second, put it back, take it off, put it back. Eventually, you'll take your hand off altogether, but you're still there. You're still right there. And I tell my leaders, like, I'm not going to let you ride out into traffic, get hit by a bus. But I'm also not going to continue to hold that seat the entire time. At some point, I'm going to let go and let you ride. Another great book that talks about creating leaders is Turn the Ship Around by L. Marquardt. He was a commander on a submarine. So traditional leadership models often emphasize the need to think differently before acting differently. That is, change your mindset first, and then your behavior follows. This is important. It's going to come back a little bit later, so keep that in your mind. Change your mindset first, behavior follows. Marquardt flipped this around. He had a different idea. He believed that instead of waiting for people to change their mindset, give them the opportunity to act with autonomy and responsibility, and the mindset will follow. Why does it work? Because behavior, some studies show, shapes belief. When people take ownership and make decisions, they begin to see themselves as leaders. This shift in identity reinforces a new way of thinking. Confidence through action. Acting first builds confidence. As team members succeed in making decisions, they trust their own judgment more and begin thinking like problem solvers. Culture change happens from the bottom up instead of the top down. Rather than waiting for a top-down cultural shift, empowering action at every level creates kind of a ripple effect where one team member who starts to become a leader impacts the next one and also starts impacting accountability. So on the USS Santa Fe, where Marquardt was the leader, he didn't wait for his crew to become ready to lead. He started by changing the language. encouraging them to say, I intend to, instead of asking for permission. This small behavioral shift led to a broader transformation in how they thought about their roles and responsibilities. In teams, it encourages initiative by letting team members make decisions within their scope. In organizations, organization-wide, it's really about redesigning systems to support decentralized control and trust. Very difficult in hospitals because we're very hierarchical organizations. And in personal growth, it starts with behaving like the person you want to become and hoping your mindset will catch up. So letting go really grants controls to others to foster ownership and development. You give control, you don't take control. Instead of issuing orders, you should delegate authority. And we're going to talk about delegation in a little bit. And trust your teams to make decisions, which builds confidence and accountability. Another key factor is developing technical competence of your team. It only works if your people are technically capable. Leaders, so you must invest in training and education so your teams can make informed decisions. You have to have a clarity of purpose for this to work. Everyone must understand the mission and values, not only of your organization, but your values, and know the why. You should be encouraging initiative, create a culture where people feel safe. We talked about psychological safety to suggest improvements, and then take some action on those improvements so they feel heard. Flatten the hierarchy by reducing the dependency on rank for decision making. Promote collaborative problem solving. So the result for the USS Santa Fe was it became one of the best performing submarines in the US Navy. It started out as one of the worst, and it grew to be one of the best by empowering his crew. Sailors began to make decisions, solve problems, and the big thing that happened was they took pride in their work, all because they were treated as leaders. Now we're back to the clicker not working. Okay, clicker works again. But building a culture of empowerment can be really hard. Excuse me, especially when people are very conditioned to follow a certain routine in response to certain cues and perceive that that's rewarded. So there's something called a habit loop. The cue is the trigger that initiates that behavior. These can be things that are internal, emotions, thoughts, sensations. It could be external, like time of day even. It could be location, people, preceding events that happened before you even talked to them. All of these cues help to establish a routine. The routine is the actual behavior that follows the cue. These routines, they could be physical, grabbing a snack or some chocolate when you're under stress. They could be mental, repeating a thought pattern in your mind. It could be emotional, like avoiding a task. This is the part of the loop that's most often targeted for redesign when trying to change the habit. And then there's the reward. It's what the brain gains from performing that action. Could be relief, it could be pleasure, could be stimulation, could be closure. So it could be all kinds of different things for the person. The rewards teach the brain whether a habit is worth remembering or not. If the brain senses that reward, it tends to remember that routine. And when it consistently satisfies a craving, for example, stress relief, the loop becomes stronger and stronger over time. Old habits persist because they develop efficient neural pathways. So I've heard it said that the habit loop is like a well-worn trail in your brain, and you'll naturally go to that trail because all the trees, weeds, and barriers are cut down and removed. So it's really easy to get from point A to point B. Backing a new is insanely more difficult. So our brain naturally just reverts to the old well-worn path that we know. But research shows that behavior often changes before beliefs or mindset do, which is the opposite of what Mark Ward said, and that small nudges can shift behavior before mindset. So jury is still out. There's literature both ways. So you can make up your own mind what you believe. I personally believe it's both. I think it depends on the situation and the person, and that both can be true. Sometimes habits drive belief, and sometimes the other way around. But like I said, I'm not the expert. Sorry, clicker doesn't work again. So another key concept to think about when we're talking about letting go is where you're at in terms of leadership with your group. And this is something that I self-developed. Oversight is the highest level in my mind. Oversight is really where you want to be as a higher level leader. Oversight means you're paying attention to outcomes. Causing change to occur if you're unsatisfied with the progress. And those words are very intentional. So you're focused on progress. This is where paying attention less to outcomes and you're paying attention more to what is being done and how it's being done. And the lowest level is what I call snoopervision. Snoopervision is where not only are you most concerned with what's being done and how it's being done, but also who is doing it and substituting your own opinion with those that are doing the work. Now, you may be at different places with different teams at different times for different things. My point is you should really put some thought into where am I right now with this team? Am I at supervision mode? Am I at oversight mode? What do I need to do to get to oversight mode? And having candid conversation with your leaders of, I don't feel like I'm in oversight mode because of A, B, C, but I would like to get there. Let's talk about what can we do together so I can get to focusing on the outcomes and you can just go do. And you might slide back. And I think to me, the most rewarding, what my team would say is the most rewarding place that they want me to be at is oversight. They don't want me in supervision mode. So let's dive into delegation. I'm going to say this is probably, along with listening, delegation is one thing I've worked on for forever and keep trying to get better and better at. Still working on it. Also, two schools of thought about delegation. Napoleon Bonaparte said, if you want things done well, do it yourself. Dr. Gennett says, if you want it done right, you don't have to do it yourself. So I recommend this book if you're struggling with delegation like I do. So she has 7 actionable steps in the book. It's told in the form of a story about 2 cousins, but at the end of the book, you'll distill 7 essential elements for effective delegation. 1, prepare beforehand. 2, clearly define the task. 3, be specific about expectations. 4, have the employee repeat back the instructions. 5, clarify timeframes and deadlines. 6, define authority levels and build checkpoints. And 7, conduct a debrief after completion. Now you're going to face a lot of challenges in doing these 7. You're going to face unclear expectations. This is one I struggle with where they walk away and it's like, what did he say he wanted me to do? I don't get it. That's where that comes in handy. Guilt, who feels guilty about delegating sometimes? Who feels like you're dumping? So guilt is a big one. And we're going to talk about how to get over guilt in the next slide. Although I still feel guilty sometimes, but, and lack of trust, both on your part and theirs. But structured communication can solve a lot of these issues. As I said, the readback, super important. At the end of the day, delegation should benefit both the leader and the employee if done correctly. Delegation expands the employee's skills, confidence, and ownership while giving leaders space to focus on strategic priorities. It also tends to reintroduce energy and passion into not only the leader's role, but your team member's role. They feel they're really contributing something meaningful. So a tool that I use to get over my delegation guilt is a delegation map. This isn't my actual map. I just made this one up. I didn't want to out any of my team members, but so it's basically who they are, what their role is. I'm a big believer in the Enneagram personality profile. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. If you're not, you should read up on it. You can get free Enneagram profiles if you can get your team to do it. It's super helpful to sort of learn where they're coming from if they're a different personality type. And there's a lot of tools in there that can help you relate to your leaders better. So I have their Enneagram type listed. I also have what we agree are their core skills. So I don't make this up. This is through conversations with them. Hey, I think you're really good at this. Yeah, I feel I'm really good at that. Sometimes I get it wrong. They're like, actually, I'm not really good at that. I really struggle with that. We need to move that into the skill for growth column. We mutually agree on what are things you would love to be better at or learn more about. And then I put, what are the tasks I delegated and why? And so I'm very intentional on my delegation now, and I will have the conversation to say, I think you would be really good at this, and I would love for you to take this on because it fits some of the things you're looking to learn. And then I keep track of the outcome. So let's talk a little bit about the O in GLOW. And here's another video that you're going to miss, but O is for open opportunities. So a book that I highly recommend around this concept is called Multipliers. So the idea is that when the leader walks in the room, that's not when ideas stop, that's when ideas explode. And that the leader multiplies the impact of the people in the room and brings out the best in their team. So really it's about being a talent magnet. If you're a magnifier, you're a talent magnet. How this helps your team grow is it attracts and develops talented people. You see potential where others see limits, and it places people in roles that stretch and challenge them. How it helps your team is that your people rise to higher levels because they're expected to. Team members feel seen, valued, and invested, and high performers want to stay and contribute. I'm lucky in that in the almost 10 years I've been there, I've only lost 2 people out of my leadership team, one to retirement who was like 6 months from retirement when I started, and one through, unfortunately, reduction in force. But otherwise, luckily, I've been able to keep, and I'm not saying it's because of me, but it's because of using these techniques of making them feel valuable. Assigning stretch roles before someone feels like they're ready. So don't wait. Sometimes it's too late if you wait till they're like fully ready. Say, this is a stretch role, but I believe in you. I know you can do it. I see more in you than you see in yourself. So actively coaching strengths, not just fixing weaknesses. It means being a liberator, creating psychological safety we talked about, demanding high standards without micromanaging, so not being in supervision mode, encouraging people to think, speak, and contribute fully. People bring their best thinking, not just compliance in team growth. Ideas surface earlier and problems are solved faster. So what does this look like as a leader? It means asking open questions before offering opinions. Rewarding thoughtful risk taking. I like okay, Maria already made up his mind, so I'm not going to say nothing. So I've learned over time, now that I've been with my team for so long, they're onto my tricks. So they're like, we know you're thinking about something, just say it. Means being a challenger by stretching people beyond what they thought possible. That means setting ambitious goals, framing challenges as opportunities for growth, believing people can figure things out on their own. Team members expand their skills quickly, and individuals develop resilience and problem-solving ability. In this model, success feels earned, not just given, and that increases pride and ownership. So what does this look like in practice? It means assigning complex problems, sometimes intentionally with minimal instruction, and I will tell them that in advance. So like, I'm intentionally not giving you a whole bunch to work with on purpose. I want to see you just go take it, form your own ideas and opinions. Is saying, this is hard, but I believe you can do it, and letting people struggle productively instead of rescuing them all the time. Your team this way grows capacity and adaptability.